All right, so Mauricio Sulaiman, he's becoming more and more and more present in boxing media, especially over the last day or two. He's taken part in a couple of really interesting interviews. One with Boxing Social, a UK outlet, and then the Boxing Voice, an American media outlet. So the reason why he's becoming quite prominent in the media is because the WBC have recently made a couple of rulings in their lightweight division, 135-pound division, with regards to their vacant title. I made a video about that the other day where they've mandated Luke Campbell to fight Lomachenko. And the other ruling they made recently was to do with Dillian Whyte, Dominic Brazil, and Deontay Wilder, and the heavyweight WBC championship, who should be the mandatory challenger, and what should happen next now that Brazil got that slot. So I'm not going to go into details about the actual decisions they came to, because obviously you guys should already know this. If you don't, then I don't understand why you're actually watching this video. But anyway, that's not the point I'm trying to make. So Mauricio Sulaiman, in both of these interviews, he said some interesting things. The first one with the Boxing Social, he said that Eddie Hearn is the king of double standards. Why did he say that? He said that because Eddie Hearn's been very, very vocal, as we know he can be. He's been very vocal in both in the States and over here in the UK, because of the ruling made around Dillian Whyte not getting the mandatory position to fight Deontay Wilder or Dominic Brazil, depending on who wins that fight. And he's been very vocal now, because the WBC rule that Luke Campbell should fight Lomachenko and not Devin Haney. And Devin Haney obviously is a matchroom fighter, as is Luke Campbell, so that would have been a nice, easy in-house fight to make. Now Eddie Hearn basically has to have Luke Campbell fight Lomachenko, a fight where he's got 0 to no chance, and it's basically fucked up Eddie Hearn's plans for that lightweight title. Now, the reason why I'm making this video isn't to do with the lightweight situation, because I've already commented on that. It's to do with the heavyweight situation. So we were told that the WBC made a ruling and that Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn weren't happy with the ruling, and this was last week during the build up to the Canelo and Jacobs fight. And Eddie Hearn said that they were gonna go back to the WBC with a petition, or whatever the actual legal word is, or the jargon is that you're meant to use, but basically saying to the WBC, no, we're not happy with your ruling, this is what we think should happen. So what Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn believe should happen is that Dillian Whyte is already scheduled to fight Oscar Rivas. Oscar Rivas is ranked in the WBC. Dillian Whyte has had a number of fights against top 10 ranked WBC heavyweight fighters, and he's beaten them all one by one. He's been the silver champ, international champ. I don't know these titles. I don't even know what they actually mean, but he's had some form of WCW. And he said WCW there. This ain't wrestling, guys. This is boxing. He's had some form of WBC title over the last 2 years, some iteration of a subsidiary title, not the actual heavyweight title, but he's had some form of recognition from the WBC over the last few years, over the last couple of years, not few years. And they're basically saying, look, he's fighting another top 10 competitor, and he deserves this to be a final eliminator, and if he wins, he should get that mandatory slot, which makes sense. Now, the interview Mauricio Sulaiman did with the Boxing Voice yesterday, that was interesting, because up until now, he hasn't publicly spoken about the decision that the WBC came to. He mentioned it in an interview with Kugan Cassius last week, Mauricio Sulaiman. He said, we've made a ruling and we've informed Dillian Whyte what our ruling is. Now it's up to him to come back to us and let us know if he accepts this ruling, which I found quite weird, because if you're the governing body, why are you asking the fighter, do you accept this? Surely if you're the governing body, it's your job to govern your body. So it's your job to govern your rankings, and it's your job to govern the fighters that are in your rankings, and it's your job to say, this is what we're doing, like it or lump it, right? But then also, you know, I suppose what he meant is, this is our ruling, you have a certain amount of time to appeal what we've said. So I don't think it was more a question of, oh, are you happy with this? Is this what you want? Is this what we, are you happy for us to do this? I think it was, okay, this is the ruling. Dillian Whyte if you want to appeal, you've got a grace period. I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I've just made that time period up, but you've got a grace period to appeal. This is what I think anyway. I don't know. Now, the interesting thing about the interview yesterday is Mauricio Sulaiman let slip that the ruling that they came to was because Dominic Brazil and Deontay Wilder are already fighting. He said that they have ordered Dillian Whyte to fight Tyson Fury as a final eliminator for the mandatory position to face the winner of Dominic Brazil and Deontay Wilder. That blew my mind. And I'll tell you why it blew my mind. Because what the fuck? So they okay, so originally, if you cast your mind back a couple of months, they made their ruling that Tyson Fury was the mandatory challenger for this belt because of the inconclusive nature of the fight he had with Deontay Wilder in December, and because of that, they've moved him up their rankings, or they've moved him up, so he's now the mandatory challenger, and they called a mandatory title fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and it kind of left Dominic Brazil and Dillian Whyte in the lurch. So to appease them, they put them both in a final eliminator. But here's why this has blown my mind, because Tyson Fury was given that slot as the mandatory challenger. He was then also given a favourable split of the purse, because usually when you're a mandatory challenger, it's like a 75-25 split. But the WBC turned around and said, because of Tyson Fury's commercial value, we deem his split to be 60-40. Which, if you're Deontay Wilder, you're saying, what the fuck? This isn't the precedent. And I'm going to come back to this word, precedent, in, a bit later. If you're Deontay Wilder, saying, what the fuck? This isn't the precedent. Like, challengers always only get 25%. Why are you just changing the rules all of a sudden? Right? And then Tyson Fury, although he was in such a strong and powerful position, because he could have let this negotiation go to purse bids, where basically he could have ended up in a position making exponentially more money than he did in the first fight. He chose to walk away from the table, sign with ESPN. Fair enough, because they obviously paid him shitloads of money as well, and he was happy in that slot. Like, okay, I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm just going to do my thing here and fight Tom Schwartz. Right? So the reason why this has blown my mind is, if Tyson Fury has already walked away from being the mandatory challenger literally 6 months ago, why are you then putting him back in a position to fight in a final eliminator for the WBC belt, for a mandatory slot to fight for the WBC belt, that he's already walked away from? You've already given him a favourable position, a mandatory position, and you've given him 15% more of the purse split than is usually precedented. Why are you then going back to him? I understand he's a big name. I understand he's like consensus top 3 heavyweight in the world. But he's blatantly disrespected the WBC by saying, all right, I know you made me mandatory, but fuck it, I don't want it. I'm walking away. I'm going to fight Tom Schwartz. And this isn't me trying to have a go at Tyson Fury. This is just me saying it how it is, because I'm a Tyson Fury fan. It's like, what is the logic in this ruling by the WBC? Now, don't get me wrong. If this is the ruling, I'm all for it, because I would love to see the Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury fight. I'd love it. I'm sick and tired of people not fighting each other. And I think Dillian Whyte is definitely one of the 4 best heavyweights in the world. And I want to see him fight Tyson Fury. And I want to see Dillian Whyte get a chance against one of the top 3 boys. But I just can't get my head around the WBC bringing Tyson Fury into this equation, even though he's just literally 6 months ago walked away from a mandatory title position. Like, what makes you think now, if he was to fight Dillian Whyte and he was to win that fight and he was to then get another mandatory title shot, what makes you think he'd actually want to take that fight? He didn't have a better chance in terms of a mandatory position. He didn't. Like everything was there for him. Everything was there for him. It was there to so much of an extent that Deontay Wilder's team were willing to split the purses 50-50 to avoid the fight going to purse bids, to avoid someone like DAZN coming in and winning the rights for that fight, to avoid ESPN coming in and winning the rights for the fight. Like, he was literally guaranteed a 50-50 split, and he still said no. He still walked away from it. I made a video at the time saying Tyson Fury ducked, even though I like the guy. It makes zero sense to bring Tyson Fury back into the equation. As a fan, if Tyson Fury was to agree to this whole scenario, I'm all for it because I want to see the fight. But he's already walked away from it. He's already told us he don't want it. So why? And then I mentioned earlier, I'm going to come back to the word precedent. There's a difference between a precedent and a rule. The problem with these scenarios when it comes to rankings, mandatory title positions, final eliminators, things of that nature, there are no rules. It's all because, and I understand why there's no specific rules, because every situation is so individual. It's like open to interpretation. All right, well, this fits in this rule. No, it fits in that rule. So all we can go by is precedent. But precedent don't mean shit because there's no rules to back it up. Does that make sense? I totally understand Dillian Whyte's position because he's been dicked about for 2 years now by the WBC. And so has Dominic Breazeale, to be fair, because Dominic Breazeale was the mandatory challenger for that belt, what, 2 years ago as well? Do you know what I mean? Like, the WBC have made a real mess of that, of the top of their rankings for that WBC belt. And I'm not blaming Deontay Wilder for this because he has committed to fighting mandatory challengers. Who was it? He was meant to fight Luis Ortiz, and Luis Ortiz failed a drugs test, and then that fight got postponed. I think he was meant to fight. Was it Povetkin he was meant to fight in Russia? And Povetkin failed a drugs test. I know it was a Russian. I can't remember who it was now. I'm pretty sure it's Povetkin. But he had agreed to go to Russia to fight that fight. And Povetkin failed his drugs test. So all of these things have happened which have been a setback for the WBC. And it's made it unclear in terms of the top of that division. But this ruling here that I'm talking about specifically, I struggle to understand it. Because if they had turned around and said, and bearing in mind, this has taken a while. The Dominic Breazeale ruling about him becoming the mandatory happened months ago. If the WBC had acted quicker and they had said to Dillian Whyte, okay, here's our ruling, the Whyte Fury scenario, if they made that ruling a couple of months ago, then Whyte wouldn't be scheduled to already fight Oscar Rivas. That ruling could have happened, and then Fury could have said yes or no, he wants to be part of this process or whatever. Or it could have gone down to Luis Ortiz, who's the next ranked heavyweight. Then they got Cal Naki in the rankings. Like, there's these names that they have in the rankings, and Oscar Rivas is also in the rankings, but he's ranked, according to this site that I'm looking at, he's ranked at number 10. So he's a genuine opponent that could fight in a final eliminator. But what I'm saying is, if the WBC pulled their finger out and made this ruling at the same time they made the ruling about Breazeale taking that slot because Fury turned it down, they could have gone and spoken to Fury, Ortiz, well, not Breazeale because he's already in the fight, Kalnaki, Joseph Parker again, but that wouldn't make sense because Dillian Whyte's just beaten him. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, they could have had these conversations and said, right, this is our ruling. Because Breazeale's taken that fight, we ruled Dillian Whyte to fight Fighter X. Instead, now Dillian Whyte's basically already booked in to fight Oscar Rivas, which is a difficult fight. And on top of that, he's then got to fight Tyson Fury. Nonsense. It don't make sense. Although it don't make sense, in my head it don't make sense. In my heart, I fucking wish it happens. Because like I said, I want to see the fight. But these guys, because we look at these, oh, well, the precedent is this. A precedent and a rule and a law are two totally different things. And we go off the precedent and it don't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit. And because of that, you end up in a pickle like this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below. Please don't forget to share this. Don't forget to like this. Don't forget to subscribe. Bloody hell, 15 minutes. I felt like I was talking for about 5 there. That's a lot of shit I spoke. Anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one.